The day my wife gave birth to her first love's child. Episode 2. A year apart. When the opportunity to further my studies abroad presented itself, I saw it as the chance of a lifetime. Audley, ever the supportive partner, was my biggest cheerleader. Her unwavering belief in me fueled my decision. "It's just a year," she assured me, her eyes sparkling with confidence. "We'll talk every day, and when you come back, we'll pick up right where we left off. Nothing will change, I promise." Her words were a lifeline, a thread connecting me to everything I was leaving behind. I kissed her goodbye, filled with hope for the future. A year apart seemed like a small price to pay for what lay ahead. I had dreams to chase, and she had dreams of her own. I believed in us, in the love we shared, and in the plans we had made for the future. It was temporary, a brief separation in the grand scheme of things. The first few months were exhilarating. I threw myself into my studies, determined to make the most of this opportunity. The university was world-class, and the knowledge I was gaining was shaping me into a better doctor. Every day felt like a step closer to becoming the best in my field. I had always been driven, but this year abroad pushed me further than I had imagined. The challenges were immense, but the rewards were greater than I could have hoped for. Audley and I kept in touch constantly, finding ways to bridge the gap between two continents. Every morning, I would wake up to a message from her, sometimes a simple, "I miss you." Other times a longer update about her day. We exchanged calls every evening, and hearing her voice felt like a balm for the loneliness I sometimes felt. She would send me pictures of home, of the places I missed, of our favorite spots, of moments I wasn't there to experience. Each message, each call, was a thread that wove us closer together despite the distance. I was living in a new world, but she was still my anchor. She would talk about her family, about her father's health, and about the hospital. "Dad's been keeping busy," she'd say, "trying to make sure everything is running smoothly. The hospital's been a lot of work lately, but it's manageable." I believed her. I trusted her, and I wanted to. After all, what could go wrong? She was the woman I was building my future with. Nothing could disrupt that. But as the months passed, a subtle shift began. It started with the small things. Her responses became slower, her messages less frequent. The laughter in her voice that used to fill our calls started to fade. I would ask her if everything was okay, if something was wrong, but she always brushed it off. "Just busy with Dad and the hospital," she'd say, and I would nod, trying to convince myself that everything was fine. She was still my Audley, the woman I loved, and I wanted to believe that nothing had changed. Yet, the more I tried to reach her, the more distant she became. Our conversations, once full of warmth and shared dreams, began to feel strained. The absence of her presence was palpable, and the silence between us grew longer. I convinced myself it was just stress from her father's health or the pressures of managing the hospital. It was a natural explanation, one I was willing to accept, because it kept the fear at bay. But deep down, a nagging feeling began to creep in. Something was different, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. I continued to focus on my studies, throwing myself into my work. But in the quiet moments when I was alone in my room or walking through the campus, doubts began to surface. My mind kept returning to her silence, her distance. I began to question whether something had changed between us, whether the distance was more than just physical. But I couldn't bring myself to ask her outright. Not yet. What I didn't know was that while I was thousands of miles away, Audley's life was shifting in ways I couldn't see. Liam, her first love, had reappeared. He was back in her life, stirring up emotions I had no idea existed.
Don't miss out on amazing content. Hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell to stay updated with our latest videos. Join our growing community today and let's explore together.